Welcome back to the Patrick Lane Show, where we talk about personal finance, investing, and real estate. And do me a favor, right out of the gate, get it out of the way, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and ring the notification bell so you get notified every time we put a new video out. We try to do that 5 days a week, but hopefully we can stick to that schedule. So far, it's worked out pretty well. Today, we're going to talk about a quadruple witching. Now, what exactly is that quadruple witching? Well, it's coming up on this Friday, March 19th. It doesn't have anything to do with St. Patrick's Day, although, you know, that's a nice little bonus, I suppose, on the 17th. But a quadruple witching day is when a index future, index option, stock future, and stock options all expire on the same day, which means that there's typically a lot of activity on that day or leading up to it. Now, this will happen actually 4 times per year. It happens in March, it happens in June, happens in September, happens in December. But this Friday, March 19th, is the first time that it's going to happen in 2021, obviously, but it's also the first time that it's going to happen since GameStop and AMC have been making their runs as part of this short squeeze phenomenon that has happened since January, particularly with GME GameStop. And so what is it going to mean over the next few days for GameStop, the stock price, the options contracts, and all of those things? By the way, let me know down in the comments what you think it means for a quadruple witching to occur in the middle of all of this GME hype, and really in the middle of what a lot of people believe is the short squeeze for GME. Comment down below. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Does it really matter at all? Or are you just looking so far out, your diamond hand so much that you're looking past whatever could potentially happen on a quadruple witching day and just looking for the turnaround opportunity in GME? So this Friday is the day in March when the stock options, the futures options, the index options, and the index futures all are going to expire on the same day. So typically those are sort of spread out over the weeks, but again, 4 times a year it happens where there's a quadruple witching in 1 month. So all of those contracts that are hanging out there, if you think about GameStop, we've got GameStop's options contracts that are all due to expire on Friday. Let's just stick with that for a minute. So we've got all these options contracts that are hanging out there. And in fact, if you look at the data, there's so many options contracts out there that are going to expire on Friday, March 19th. There's something like 4 million of those options contracts total that are going to expire that day, which represents a huge number. Each one of those contracts is 100 shares of stock. So if you think about multiplying that number times 100, that is a real large amount of stocks that could potentially change hands if everybody executes those options contracts on March 19th. Now, the other issue is that a lot of those contracts, if you look at them, they are already in the money. You can see by looking at this graphic that there's a lot of these options contracts based on today's stock price for GME that are in the money already. So if you have an option that's in the money, that means that you have already profited or at least broken even if you execute that options contract. So why wouldn't you? The only reason you wouldn't exercise that options contract is if you simply do not have the money in your account to buy the 100 shares that you have agreed to purchase under the options contract. So if you're in the situation where you just don't have the money, the liquidity available to buy it, then you're going to let that expire. But here's what this means for the gamma squeeze is that typically all of the entities, the larger investors, institutional investors, hedge funds, etc., out there who own these options contracts, own the futures contracts, own them on both stocks and the indexes, will try to cover their hedges. They'll try to cover those positions before Friday. So this week, historically, the week leading up to a quadruple witching day is fairly volatile when it comes to the broader stock market, because they're getting in, they're getting out, they're trying to make moves to cover their positions. They want to settle those positions earlier than Friday if possible. And so we're likely to see, if history plays out, we're likely to see some volatility this week in some of the most heavily optioned and heavily future contracted stocks and indexes. So if you think about GameStop, for example, again, we've got all of these options contracts that are going to expire on Friday. Well, as we talked about in other videos, those institutional investors and hedge funds and market makers who are involved in either shorting those shares or offering the options contracts to people have a certain number of shares that they have purchased in order to hedge against everybody executing their call options. Well, if they haven't done that, this is the week, their last opportunity to do it before Friday rolls around, and they have to hand over those shares when all those contracts are executed. Now, again, going back to how many shares are in the money, it's a huge amount that are in the money right now, with GME trading at around $250 today. So if you think about the volatility, when that goes up and we get to a point where GME is trading at 275, 285, 300, you're picking up a lot more of those options contracts that become in the money. And so when the contract is in the money, it's safe to assume that most people, if they're holding that contract and it's in the money on Friday, they're going to want to execute that, because you make profit for nothing other than simply executing that contract. So let's say you've bought a contract back in February and it expires on March 19th at the strike price of $200, and on Friday, March 19th, GameStop's stock is trading at $300. Well, you're automatically going to make $100 per share if you execute that contract. Now that's, you subtract out the premium, of course, but you're going to make $100 per share in profit or increased wealth just by executing that contract on March the 19th. So the more and more number of contracts are in the money, the more likely it is that people are going to want those shares come Friday, which means that there's going to be more and more volatility this week, because people, the hedge funds, institutional investors, and market makers are going to want to cover their positions in order to provide those shares in case all of us who are holding those options contracts actually want to execute on those contracts. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is, historically, it's an interesting phenomenon that the price of the stock actually moves toward the strike price, which has the most options contracts out there in open interest. And so if we look at, for example, GameStop, it's unbelievable, but the strike price, which has the most open interest for GameStop, is, you guessed it, $800. So, and it has a multitude of the next level of strike price. And so those open contracts, if history holds true, the price of GameStop this week, even though it's sort of up and down today and it's off 6 or 8%, the price of GameStop this week, if history is the basis, should tend toward that $800 strike price, because there's 40,000 plus open contracts on GameStop at $800 for the end of this week. Now, there's been some in the past few weeks where $800 was the strike price, and none of those obviously were executed because we didn't hit that $800 strike price. So who knows whether this will actually come out, whether it'll go up and down, whether or not the strike price will hit or not, whether or not those contracts will be executed. But it's an interesting phenomenon that happens once every 3 months. It happens 4 times a year, called a quadruple witching. And this is the first time we're going to get to see how that quadruple witching and that inherent volatility and movement toward the highest strike price, how it impacts the GameStop investment, the GameStop diamond hands, and the short squeeze of GameStop, which could take us to the moon. So again, let me know what you think. Comment down below. Is the quadruple witching just some old wives' tale? Is it some superstition? Or do you think that it's going to create some movement this week and provide investors an opportunity to maybe reach that moon level at the end of the week and maybe cash out some tendies and go have a good weekend? So let me know what you think down in the comments below. I really appreciate it. Do me a favor before we get out of here. Smash that like button if you found this entertaining or educational. Hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and we'll see you on the next video.